fun. Every day in the classroom, this is the unifying statement that I make to students. It is the one statement that I believe that we can lean into for an entire semester, however long that lasts, and learn how an arduous, challenging journey can be fun. At the first class, I stand in front of a group of students and I make that statement. And I challenge students to believe it or to help me see it differently. And the fact that I started this by saying accounting is fun, you know who's winning that battle. Accounting involves wise choices. It involves financial sense. It involves ethical behavior. How could that not be fun? And beyond all of those things, I understand that every time I walk into a classroom, I face a set of challenges. Now, what I've done is I've called these challenges the opportunity to perform what I call CPR. You know what CPR is, right? It's a life-giving activity that helps individuals to live. And throughout the semester, because of the classroom and the context, I enable students to live through this experience. What do I mean when I say context? Context represents the filters through which we derive meaning from words or phrases. So to say accounting is fun is filtered through various perspectives. Now, even though students have always talked and considered money, our background causes us to think about it in different ways. In some homes, we may have talked about money every day, and that was because someone wanted us to be financially and fiscally wise. And then in other homes, persons may have talked about money every day because there simply was not enough of it. So there was always some strategy involved. And so in a classroom, there's so many contexts that come together to understand the complex dynamic of a subject. And in my case, it's accounting. But it's not only the philosophical underpinnings that differ, there's also the visible differences that influence and in some way change the way that we look at certain things. So when students come in, they come in from a unique context, but they also come in with different levels of competence, different levels of abilities, high IQs. And then there are some students that possess one of the multiple intelligences that was proposed by Howard Gardner. But either way, when I stand in front of a classroom, I have a challenge to engage not only those students who are academically astute, but also those students who may be considered marginal. So it's the context and the competence level, but it's also the complexion. And the complexion represents the diversity that exists in our classroom today. And that diversity is not only limited to visible differences, but oftentimes it is the one that we see most readily. Oftentimes when I'm in the classroom, I look around and sometimes I'm the one that's different. Now that's just not only because of color, that's just sometimes I'm loud. But I believe teachers are supposed to be, I don't know. That's my context. But there's a complexion that we all have that says we're different. And those differences are not always visible. Sometimes they are not so visible. They are based on things that are subtle, things that are important, because visible and not so visible differences can be roadblocks to the educational experience. So in this environment in which I say accounting is fun, and I believe it with all of my heart and my mind, I come to the classroom and I recognize that there's a P in the CPR, and that P is simply this, that I have a place that I have a position and that I have a purpose. And that place, that position, and that purpose is extremely important to carrying out the objectives of a course. What is the place? The place is the classroom. But is it only a mere physical location? It's not. To me, I view the classroom as the very epicenter of the community, a place where knowledge is harvested. It's the campfire. It's that place where students learn what it is to be in a community, what it means to lean in and participate and engage. And so on that first day, one of the very important things for me to do is to establish a sense of community. And how do I do that? Ironically, students all run for the back row the first day of class because they don't know accounting is fun. And so what I have to do is invite students to come forward, to lean in and participate. Because what we are about to do for the next several weeks is establish a community of learners. And learning takes place when we communicate with one another. The only foreign and unwanted entity in the classroom that's incompetent, out of context, and out of place is ignorance. And that is what I attempt to erase when it comes to accounting. So even as students come in, and I recognize that the classroom is a place where I get to carry out the goals, the other thing that I recognize is that I am ultimately in a position of power and authority. I get to set the atmosphere for the class experience. And what does that mean? That means that when students come in, it's important to me that they understand I want to know who they are by name. So I will ask names. I will ask questions. I will ask what you think and what you know. Because these are the ways in which we not only empower others, but we empower ourselves. So my role of power and authority is not about exercising control over a group, but allowing them to understand that they have a power that they can exercise over their destiny. And then there's a purpose. Why am I there? Why are students there? Why do students lean in? Even when it seems as if accounting, which I would never say out in public, so do not repeat this, even when it seems accounting is not fun, they still come. Education has a significant goal, and it's not just to promote reading and writing and the ability to do math, but it's also the ability to reason and to think and to generate ideas. And what does that mean for a student in a classroom, particularly one that's studying accounting? That means that you will learn the absolute rules of debits and credits. But what it means beyond that is that you will take the product, the financial statements that inform your personal context and make wise decisions. Education is not about just the content, but the ability to take the content and to apply it within our different contexts. And every day in a classroom, when I say accounting is fun, I recognize that I challenge students to think about a body of knowledge in a way that perhaps has never been thought of before, based on their personal experiences. And what do they do with that? What do we do with that? How do we relate and interact with that experience? The number one thing that I take away from that, if the C is the context, i.e. there's so many different students that come from so many different backgrounds in the classroom, And if the P represents the place, the classroom where all of this learning takes place, then it's extremely important that at the end of this, students are able to recognize that they are taking away something that's extremely different than what they came in with. We, as professors in particular, have to recognize and respect the goal of education. That even though students don't share the same experiences, they can change their community in a way that's fundamental to our society. So when I walk in, I believe it with a passion. Accounting is fun. And I say it with belief. And oftentimes students look at me because it's one of those, is she real? She is. But if I don't believe it, how can students? How can we realize this goal? One of the ways that I realize the goal within an accounting class is through this. I redefine what it means to be intelligent. Now, how do you do that? You simply add to it what I call 3 factors. The fact that intelligence is diverse. That means that on the theory of multiple intelligences by Howard Gardner, that the way that we understand the world and the way that we engage with the world may not be based on a high IQ. It may be based on the creativity that I have, the way that I'm able to use my hand, the way that I am able to envision the future and translate that, transform it in some way. So intelligence is diverse. But I also recognize that every time a student walks into the classroom, that intelligence is dynamic. That means that the way that you walk in is not the way that you're going to leave. Change takes place. And if intelligence is diverse and if intelligence is dynamic, what else is intelligence? Intelligence is simply this. It is the ability to understand that my greatest measure of excellence is not in a higher score, but in reaching my highest potential. In understanding that truth, it takes away the pressure to compare myself and my performance to someone else. It is the opportunity that I have within this community to understand that even though we are so different because of our context, our competence level, and our complexion, we all have the ability to contribute and to make a difference. And that our intelligence is valuable and that it is valued in our environment. Because we have unique gifts and talents, we leave with a distinctive and a unique ability to apply the content of any subject matter. My goal will be, whenever I stand in front of a classroom, to completely and absolutely challenge the students. Because oftentimes, and I remember this when I first started teaching, one of the questions that students would ask, they would see me and I'd be in the front there and they'd look and they'd make the assumption and they'd be like, is she going to be nice? And of course I'm nice. Is she going to be fair? Of course I'm fair. Is she going to be good? No, I'm not good. I'm excellent. But they wonder and they ask about these things. What type of experience would it be when I leave from this particular classroom? It will be an experience that challenges each one. Because in the challenge, we find that we actually, within us, have the ability to pursue, and not only to pursue, but to achieve. And not only to achieve, to attain. And so at the end of a semester, a joining, after students have gone through an experience from my context, an insistence that accounting is fun, when they walk out of the classroom, what is it that I hope, that I expect, that they leave with? My hope is that they leave with an appreciation for their own personal context, but also the personal context of others, because they've been challenged to look through a set of lenses that are inherently different. My hope is that when students leave, they leave with a body of knowledge that emphasizes the content of a particular subject matter, that unifies them to participate in our broader, global, technologically advanced, and yet diverse environment. My hope is that students leave more competent and more confident, knowing that what we have accomplished together, we did not as an individual effort, but as an effort of a group who came together to create a community of learners. Do I believe in what I do in the classroom? Absolutely. And so that first day is the opportunity to set the stage, to remind students that you are not in this alone, that we are coming together to learn accounting from a community of learners' perspective, so that we can individually apply it in our communities. Lean in. Accounting is fun, but beyond fun, it's relevant. And I believe that education has the power to transform lives, and accounting is just one way that I endeavor to do that.